Love after 60. These 5 flirty behaviors men can't hide prove he's in love with you. Welcome to Wise Life After 60. So grateful to have you here. Let's be honest for a second. Figuring men out after 60 can sometimes feel like trying to read a book with half the pages missing. One moment, he's leaning in, laughing at your stories, locking eyes like you're the only woman in the room. Then the next, he's pulling back, acting like it was all just friendly small talk. And there you are, wondering, wait, was that flirting, or did I make it up in my head? If you've ever been stuck in that space where you're not sure whether to smile or step away, you're not alone. I've been there. And if there's one thing I've learned about dating after 60, it's this. Most men won't just say it out loud. They won't walk up and tell you, "I like you," with a sign in their hand. But that doesn't mean they're not showing you. Because even when a man tries to hide it, even when he's playing it cool, his actions will always give him away. Little behaviors, subtle body language, even just where he chooses to stand in a room, all add up. So if you've ever caught yourself asking, is he just being nice, or is there something more here? Then you're in the right place. Today we're going to look at 5 flirty behaviors men over 60 can't hide, and what they mean when words fall short. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more helpful tips like this. Flirty behavior number 1. Creating opportunities for connection. It often begins with something so small, you might miss it. A step closer during a conversation. A lingering presence beside you at a group dinner. A man who always seems to settle into the seat next to yours, even when there are plenty of others open. He may not say anything unusual. He may keep the conversation light. But he's already telling you something without a single word. I remember this man I used to run into at the park. Nothing dramatic. He'd show up on my walking route like clockwork. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. A polite nod, a smile, a short chat about the weather. But then I noticed he always matched my pace. Never too far behind, never ahead. Just beside me. Quietly consistent. And that's when it clicked. He wasn't walking the path. He was walking with me. Sometimes men over 60 express interest in the only way they feel safe doing it, through proximity. Because after a certain age, there's often hesitation, fear of rejection, wounds from the past, a desire to protect pride. So instead of words, they use space, or rather, how they choose to share it. This is why dating after 60 requires a different kind of attention. You're not just listening for what's said, you're watching for what's felt. Emotional warmth, energy, a subtle lean-in. Men who are truly drawn to you will often find ways to be close without drawing attention to it. It's like a dance they're not quite ready to lead, but they still want to be on the floor. And it's rarely an accident. That chair beside you at the book club? He chose that. The time he appeared just as you were wrapping up your grocery shopping? Not a coincidence. His subconscious is steering him in your direction, whether he admits it or not. I think we often downplay this kind of attention. We call it friendliness, or we brush it off as a habit. But here's the truth. An emotionally available man will find ways to be physically available too. And when his presence starts to feel consistent, personal, or quietly intentional, that's when you know something deeper might be blooming. It's not about reading into every little move. It's about noticing patterns.
And more importantly, notice how you feel when he's around. Calm? Energized? Seen? That's where the real signal lives. So pay attention to the men who keep showing up, who seem to orbit your space gently, respectfully, quietly. Because when it comes to emotional connection, the body often speaks before the heart finds the courage to say a word. And that brings me to another sign, one that's not about closeness at all, but about attention, the kind that isn't loud or flashy, but still makes you feel like the most interesting person in the room.
Flirty behavior number 2, attentive presence. There's something deeply attractive about being remembered, not in grand ways, not with gifts or big statements, but quietly. Someone recalls a small thing you once said, something you barely remember sharing yourself. Attentive presence is one of the clearest signs a man is emotionally invested. When he listens, he doesn't just hear you, he absorbs you, your stories, your habits, your opinions. He holds on to these little pieces of you like they matter, because to him, they do. It might be a passing mention of your grandmother's love for porcelain teacups, or a memory you shared of sitting by the lake in autumn. And then days or weeks later, he brings it up again. Not to impress you, not to flatter, but simply because he's paying attention, and more importantly, because you've stayed in his mind. I've come to believe that this kind of attentiveness is rarer than people admit. In our later years, we've all experienced conversations where people talk at us, not with us. They nod along, but their minds are elsewhere. So when someone shows up fully, when a man listens without needing to fix, advise, or redirect, it feels like coming home, like being seen, not just looked at. This presence is especially meaningful in dating after 60 because many of us carry quiet doubts. We wonder if we're still interesting, if anyone still wants to know the deeper parts of us. And when a man remembers your favorite author, your dislike for loud restaurants, or the way you always pause before answering something personal, that's not surface-level interest. That's connection forming in real time. There's also science behind this. Psychologists call it selective memory bias, when we unconsciously retain specific details about someone we're emotionally drawn to. And studies on men over 60 show that this form of emotional tracking often intensifies when romantic attraction is involved, even if he doesn't fully realize it himself. The Stoics used to say that attention is a form of love. To see something clearly and choose to keep seeing it is one of the greatest acts of devotion. I think that's still true. So the next time a man brings up something you forgot you even shared, pause for a moment, because underneath that moment might be something more than kindness. It might be care. It might be interest in. It might be love taking its very first breath. I'm curious, have you ever had someone remember a tiny detail about you that made you feel seen or special? Something you didn't think anyone noticed? If so, share it in the comments. I'd love to know how it made you feel. Sometimes it's not the loud signs we remember most. It's the quiet ones that follow us home. While presence is powerful, affection has another language too. One that's playful, disarming, and almost impossible to fake. Flirty behavior number 3, playful teasing. Have you ever noticed how some men find a way to make you laugh, not with a big joke, but with something small and oddly specific, like they've been quietly studying what makes you smile? That kind of teasing, the kind wrapped in warmth, shared glances, and little private jokes, is one of the most overlooked signs a man is drawn to you. Especially later in life, when flirting gets quieter, but no less meaningful, Humor becomes a powerful doorway to emotional connection. When a man teases you in a way that's light, respectful, and just a little mischievous, he's doing more than trying to be funny. He's inviting you into a space that only the two of you share. A secret conversation, spoken through raised eyebrows, playful words, and the gentle push-pull of shared amusement. I still remember a man I used to see at the community art classes. I made a comment once, offhand, about how I always ended up with paint on my clothes, no matter how careful I was. The next week, he walked in with a plastic poncho and handed it to me without a word, just a half smile and a twinkle in his eye. "Figured I'd save the canvas from your sweater," he said. It wasn't about the joke. It was about the intimacy behind it. The fact that he'd remembered something small, that he'd carried it with him, and then found a way to bring it back to me, wrapped in laughter. That's what playful teasing really is. It's emotional attention disguised as charm. A man who teases you this way isn't being careless. He's being deliberate, watching your reactions, testing the waters, creating a rhythm that only the two of you can dance to. And that rhythm matters, especially in dating after 60, when many of us wonder if we've lost that spark, if anyone still sees us in that bright, flirty light. A little humor, shared gently, can pull us out of self-doubt and back into the warm space of possibility. I think of what Rumi once said, "Laugh as much as you breathe, and love as long as you live." Because sometimes love doesn't begin with a declaration. Sometimes it begins with a smile and a joke only the two of you understand. So, if a man keeps circling back to these playful moments, teasing you lightly, making you laugh in a way that feels personal, he's likely saying a lot more than he lets on. When the teasing grows softer and the laughter settles into stillness, what often follows is something far more revealing. The kind of openness that few men allow, unless their feelings run deep. Flirty behavior number 4, vulnerability. What does it mean when a man suddenly stops joking and starts telling you things he hasn't told anyone else? That shift from light to honest, from playful to personal, is often the clearest signal of emotional depth. When a man begins to share not just his stories, but his silences, not just his memories, but his hesitations. He may start by telling you something small, like how he no longer visits a certain cafe because it reminds him of someone, or how Sundays feel too quiet now that his brother's gone. It slips out gently, almost like he wasn't planning to say it, then stops. He waits, watches, and wonders if it's safe. That moment is precious. Vulnerability isn't easy, especially for men of a certain generation. Many were raised to keep things inside, to measure strength in silence, to protect their emotions like valuables in a locked drawer. So when a man begins to open that drawer, even just a little, he's offering you something rare. Not polished, not perfect, but real. In senior dating, this kind of openness matters more than grand gestures. At this stage of life, we're not looking for performance. We're looking for truth. And truth often comes wrapped in the awkward honesty of, "I don't usually talk about this, but..." It might be about family, or regrets, or fears he's never put into words. He may tell you about the nights he still misses his wife, or how he's afraid of becoming a burden. He's not trying to impress you in those moments.
He's letting you see the parts of himself that are most human, most unguarded, most real. Here's the beauty in that. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's a quiet kind of trust, a sign that he doesn't just want your company, he wants your understanding, your presence, your heart. The philosopher Seneca once wrote, "No one can lead a happy life if they think only of themselves and turn everything to their benefit. You must live for another if you wish to live for yourself." Vulnerability is often where that shift begins. It's the place where affection becomes intimacy. So the next time a man shares something raw or unexpected, don't brush it off. Listen to the tremble underneath his words. Because when a man lets you see his emotional core, it often means he's already let you into his heart. Have you ever had someone reveal something deeply personal to you out of the blue? Something that made you feel trusted or even changed the way you saw them? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Sometimes one moment of openness can say more than a dozen declarations of love. As we age, our armor softens. Beneath it, connection can finally begin to breathe.
Flirty behavior number 5, including you in future plans. Sometimes a man will say something so simple, so offhand, that it barely catches your attention, like, "We should do that sometime." It floats by like small talk. But listen closely, because when he says it with a certain softness in his voice, a quiet glance in your direction, what he's doing is imagining a future with you in it. This is one of the clearest signs of real interest, especially after 60. When a man begins to casually include you in plans, even ones as small as next week's concert or a trip to the farmer's market, he's not just passing time. He's imagining time with you. Not just now, but later, again, still. I once had a gentleman say to me, while sipping tea at a community event, "You'd love the garden tour they do in spring. I'll remind you when it comes around." It was a simple moment, no pressure, no declaration, but in that one sentence, he had placed me in a future that hadn't happened yet. He'd made space for me there. And something about that stuck. Because after a certain age, we don't talk about someday the way we used to. We become more careful with our time, more thoughtful with our invitations. So when a man pictures you beside him in a setting that hasn't come yet, it often means you've moved into more than just the present tense of his life. These aren't grand promises. They're subtle signals. Mentions of concerts, church outings, and road trips. Little nudges like, "You'd probably laugh at this," or "We should try that next time." He may not even be aware he's doing it, but part of him is already reaching forward, gently pulling you into the rhythm of his days. And when that happens, don't dismiss it. Don't rush to brush it off as politeness. These casual, offhand comments are often where emotional availability begins to bloom. He may not be ready to call it love. He may not even know what to call it, but the door is opening. Including someone in your future, even lightly, is one of the most vulnerable things a person can do, because it means they're hoping, maybe just a little, that you'll still be there when the moment comes. It's a gesture that says without words, "I'd like to keep you around." And maybe that's the most romantic thing of all.
So much love after 60 is written in subtle language. It's not loud. It doesn't shout from across the room. It speaks through nearness, memory, laughter, vulnerability, and quiet moments that stretch just a little longer than they need to. These 5 flirty behaviors may seem small on the surface. A glance, a comment, a joke meant just for you. But if you're paying attention, you'll see what they're saying underneath. I care. I notice. I hope. You see, The heart never stops looking for connection, not because it's lonely, but because it knows how meaningful it can be to feel understood, to feel chosen, even if it's quiet, even if it takes time. And if you've recognized even one of these signs in someone around you, I hope you'll permit yourself to lean in just a little, because sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come softly. They arrive without fanfare. Just a man, a moment, a feeling he thought he could hide, but you saw anyway. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Wise Life After 60. We're building something gentle here, a place where wisdom, emotion, and quiet joy still matter. Until next time, take care of your spirit.